Page 3 now embracing the Second Amendment at school. In Sydney, Ohio, the city's school district has implemented what thinking Americans, including the president, suggest to protect students. Schools like Emerson Elementary School have been quietly arming educators for years.
This might be the most heavily armed public school in America. In the rural town of Sydney, Ohio, would-be attackers are warned at each entrance to every school. Scattered throughout this school are several safes, opened with a fingerprint that put a Glock 19 handgun in reach of a team of teachers and staff trained to take out a shooter.
I don't necessarily like having guns in school either. Mental health, backpacks, background checks, assault rifles, gun control laws, all of those things I don't necessarily disagree with, but at the same time, all of those things combined are not going to stop an active shooter.
5 years before President Trump said this,
if you had a teacher who was adept at firearms, they could very well end the attack very quickly.
Educators like this former soldier were volunteering to train for classroom combat.
Back when we first started this, I second-guessed whether this was the correct thing to do, and sometimes I still do. But if we save one student, or we save a whole building worth of students, I think it's worth it. I think it's it's just sad that we have to do that now.
After the massacre at Connecticut's Sandy Hook Elementary School in 2012, Sheriff John Lenhart decided that if anyone starts shooting here, there would be a small army to fire back.
In America, I cannot wait on the state. I cannot wait on the federal government. I can't wait on psychologists to figure out why one person hurts another person. You have to protect yourselves. If I could wave a wand and make it all go away, I would prefer no guns, period. But that's not going to happen in the States.
Now, Florida just passed a law that permits teachers to be armed in the classroom, but how about eliminating the federal law that declares schools gun-free zones? And what about teaching the Constitution, specifically the Second Amendment, in school? Instead, we have school administrators giving a platform to the fascist left and its anti-gun, anti-Trump agenda. That's what these school walkouts were all about. But what kind of damage is done to the kids who are used as political pawns? Joining me now from Southern California, board-certified psychiatrist Dr. Carole Lieberman, MD. Doctor, young minds are so impressionable, and so you have an event that took place last week with this walkout, and clearly there is a political agenda behind it, and these kids are used as pawns to advance that agenda. But there is a lingering effect, not maybe all the kids, but some of the kids are going to have an indelible effect left on them from being used as pawns, are they not?
Yes, absolutely. You know, my question is, whose march is this anyway? And it seems that the people behind them are, you know, it's really being organized by the Empower Youth division of the Women's March, who is primarily anti-Trump, plus other anti-Trump people, plus, of course, the anti-gun lobby. And these kids, especially Parkland students, but even kids all over the United States, because though they weren't there at in the school, they've seen on television countless hours of what happened. So they are suffering from PTSD, and they're going through the stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And they're particularly in the stage right now, or at least these people who are using them as pawns are capitalizing on the anger part. Now, if they're going to be angry, there are a lot of people that they should be angry at, like the people who didn't Baker Act Nicholas Cruz right from early on, and the people, the sheriffs who stood outside their school, and lots of others.
Right, and that anger is often manifested by lashing out, and that's what a lot of these kids are doing. They're lashing out. It's a normal human reaction to a tragedy like this. But I want to go back to what you mentioned. In this case, this walkout saw effectively, as you correctly pointed out, a tribunal of radical efforts using these kids, the anti-gun lobby, the Radical Women's March, which is just an arm of the fascist left, in my opinion, and the folks who are anti-Trump. They all kind of combined and used these kids as political human shields. But these young minds are right now at this stage in their life, they're going to follow a leader, are they not? I mean, this is what they want to do. They want to follow a leader. In this case, it may have been a teacher who's promoting such a march, or maybe the school administrator, or maybe one student who happens to take charge in a class, as we've seen on television. There's a particular student out of Parkland who's all over the mainstream media talking about this, and they have a tendency to follow the leader in a situation like this, don't they?
Yes, and so all of these mixed emotions that they have, you know, from their PTSD and grief, they're focusing. I mean, these people who are using them as pawns are getting them to focus their anger at the gun lobby, essentially, well, at Trump and the gun lobby, and, you know, jumping to this sort of simplistic solution, which is banning guns. I mean, you know, people are sort of, you know, just jumping. There's a hysteria here. I mean, let me just take a second to say, these students have been, and that's why I'm talking about, they've been incredibly damaged by what happened, and now they're being doubly damaged. And when all of this goes away, when the media attention goes away, and when they don't get all of the things that they want, like, for example, that happened in Florida right after the shooting, they're going to go deeply into the depression phase.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, they're going to be more traumatized than if they hadn't done all this. Right now they're on this high, they're on television, you know, they're not really having a chance to grieve properly. And when it all goes away and they're left with nothing, you know, I mean, you know, yes, they're making some advances, I don't mean that, but when the attention goes away, they're just going to be left with all this sadness
And that's where the counselors should come in. But we know that the system, at least in Parkland, failed on multiple levels. Some of the counselors, some of the law enforcement. Nicholas Cruz, it turns out, was not only on the radar of social services and law enforcement, but he was on a list to essentially be put away. That the two guidance counselors and a sheriff's deputy at Stoneman Douglas High School concluded that he should have been forcibly committed for psychiatric evaluation.
Yes.
How do you get any more messed up than that? I mean, these people were trying to get this guy help. And if they had, who knows, maybe this might not have happened.
Well, I have been saying this from the first moment that I heard about this shooting, that there were enough signs. I mean, the sheriffs, sometimes along with mental health professionals, came to his house countless times. I mean, you know that there are various numbers. The sheriff isn't trying, you know, he's not telling all the times that they went, but certainly enough times where they should have done what they were supposed to do, and Baker acted him, committed him involuntarily, in which case he wouldn't have been able to get a gun in Florida. Yeah. So that's where we should be focusing our attention, picking out the kids in grade school who, and you can tell if you're a mental health professional, you should be able to tell which are the kids who are having problems, who are sad, who are lonely, who are being picked on, who seem to be being abused at home, having all kinds of problems. And those are the kids that you direct mental health treatment services to right away. And the problem is, a lot of these mental health professionals, this is who I blame the most, the mental health professionals who came out and saw him, and even the ones who did try to get him hospitalized, why didn't they go for it? Why didn't they keep going, keep trying until it happened?
Yeah, it's a matter of, for us to seek remedies here, it seems rather simple to me, and that is have the system work. The layers of system should have worked here, and certainly in Parkland and maybe in other school districts and other states, they need to be examined to make sure that they do work. Harden the schools. Don't make them soft targets anymore. Stop this nonsense of gun-free zones and allow administrators and teachers to carry on campus because police officers simply can't be everywhere. Doctor, out of time. Thank you.